بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So it says conditions for mixed flocks. So whenever we have any zakat that is mixed, so when we say property that is mixed, it could be in two forms. It could be that it is shared or that it is mixed. Shared means I'm going to buy a chocolate bar for $1. I'm going to ask Mohammed Hashid to pay 20 cents towards it. I'm going to pay 20 cents towards it, and I'm going to ask Badr to pay 60 cents towards it. So the three of us went into a partnership, and now every single atom of that chocolate bar is owned by us in a 1 to 2 to 3 ratio. Does that make sense? I put in 20 cents. Hamid Hashi put in 20 cents. Badr put in 60 cents. That means he owns 60%, 40%, 20%, 20%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So in that scenario, even if your fraction isn't zakatable, okay, you bought a house. You said, hey, your friend's flipping houses. Okay. He buys houses to sell them. So he says, okay, put in give me 20K, because I'm collecting it from like a bunch of people. So you put in 20K, 20K, there's a whole bunch of people, right? So the house, it's not a very good example. Let's say used cars, okay? Used cars. Your friend is buying and selling used cars, and he has 100 investors, and he wants $400 from you. So $400 is not enough, not enough to pay zakat. Okay. But then what happens is you put in $400, somebody else puts in $400, someone else does $400. Together you have $20,000. He bought this car for $20,000 and its market value is 25. Okay. And he kept it for a whole year. You're going to pay zakat on that, even though your $400 is less than zakat minimum. Why? Because it was together with other zakatable wealth. Okay, so that's when you have a share in something. You have invested, you and your brother in both inherited something, so it's such that so that you can point at every single atom of that thing and say, I have a fraction of that. Okay, that's called a partnership. Mixed is different. It's not a partnership. These are my sheep, those are your sheep. These are my cars, these are your cars. These are my gold pieces, these are your gold pieces. Okay. But when they are mixed, you pay zakat together. Okay, when they are mixed, you pay zakat together. So with livestock, when you mix livestock, you have 20 sheep, the other person has 20 sheep, but they have the same bed. They gather in the same place. They're in the same pasture, the same stud, the same drinking place, the same milk person. Everything's the same. They're treated as the same, but they're marked. These are Badrs. Badr has 10 sheep. I have 10 sheep. Muhammad Hashir has 20. We're going to pay zakat together now. So now we have, even though each individual does not have the zakatable number of sheep or zakatable number of amount of wealth or whatever it is, it's you're going to pay zakat together, and then we're going to work it out between ourselves. So we had 40 sheep. I owed a quarter of a sheep. Badr owed a quarter of a sheep. Muhammad Hashid owned half of a sheep, but you gave mine instead. So that means I've given 3/4 extra of a sheep. So I need to get that back. So now, Muhammad Hashid, you have to pay me for half of a sheep, and Badr, you have to pay me for a quarter of a sheep. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Right. Similarly, we could not give any of our sheep away and just go and buy a sheep, right? So we could do that as well, right? We could just go and buy a sheep that we're going to give away. In which case, I would say, hey, you owe half of a sheep, I owe a quarter, etc. But the point is, you don't say, I only have 10 sheep, even though you only have 10 sheep, because your sheep are treated as one, because they are in one setting, with one shepherd, with one everything. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
Similarly, gold coins. My gold coins are mixed with your gold coins. My gold coins are not your gold coins, but they're mixed with them. They're in the same treasure chest, same everything. We're going to treat it as the same. The problem is now when you look at a joint account. Okay, so Badr and I, we have a joint account. $200, $200, and Muhammad Hashid as well, $200. So let's assume that $600 is the minimum amount, right? Together, we do have $600. And if those $600 were merged, were put together, then we would pay zakat. The problem is what is a joint account? A joint account is not a place where money is kept. A joint account is that Badr, Farid, and Muhammad Hashid have all lent the bank an amount. That's what an account is. So there's a big difference between you having your sheep in one place versus you lending your money to somebody, right? Because if I come and point at my sheep, say that's my sheep, that's your sheep, right? But when you lend money to the bank, there is no ta'yin. There is no that it is not like this coin is mine. You lend money to the bank, you deposit money in the bank. That's called a loan in reality. And they owe you that money, right? And you can demand that money back whenever you want. That's what a normal checking account is, right? I can have that as opposed to a savings account. They say you can't take it back yet. Like you have to loan it to us for a certain amount of time, right? So the point is, it is a loan. You don't come along and say, hey, that's the wrong dollar that I gave you, right? So do we look at a joint account in the same way or not? Allahu alam, right? It is a slightly different reality. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Um, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So if we had so if I had 20 gold coins and
Mm-hmm.
you had 20 gold coins
Mm-hmm.
and we decided to keep it in a safe in my apartment
Mm-hmm.
for a total of 40 gold coins, then do you and I both have to pay zakat for 40 gold coins?
No, so what would happen is together we would treat ourselves as one person,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the point is that because uh so we don't have to pay. So with sheep, you might actually so with sheep, the issue with sheep, okay, with money is slightly different. Money is either you're gonna pay zakat or not pay zakat. Okay, but it will be in it's in a fixed percentage, right? With sheep, it's not. So you might not pay any. You had 20 sheep. I had 20 sheep. I don't pay any zakat. And now suddenly I pay zakat. Okay. We if I had 40, you had 40, then we're still paying this. Then we'd actually pay less because if I had 40, I'd give one. And if you had 40, you give one. But if we had 80, if we look at our numbers, right? Go back to our numbers. It's not a percentage. It's not it's discrete, it's not continuous, right? So if you have 40, you give one. So if you and I both put our 40 sheep together in one place with the same everything, then we just pay one. So you'd actually be paying less than you would normally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And similarly, if I had a 70 sheep, I pay one. You had 70 sheep. Uh, so that's not a good example. Uh, so if I had, uh, yeah, if I had 201 sheep, I would pay three, right? If you had 201 sheep, you would pay three. We put our 200 and our 402 sheep together, and we leave them with Muhammad Hashir, and he's managing them 100%. They're treated the same, albeit mine are marked FD and yours are marked B. What's your last name? E, right? BE, right? So there's a mark.
BA.
BA. Anyway, you
Mhm.
can you can point at your sheep. I can say he can say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but that one of your sheep died." You said, Fareed, hey, we need to take one of your sheep to the vet. They're not the same sheep. They are separate, but they're treated exactly the same. So I would have paid three. You would have paid three. Together, we only paid two each. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
understand.
So when it comes to money, it's less significant. The only significance with money is that we merged our money and that they independently they weren't zakatable, but now together they are zakatable, right? So now you have to pay zakat. Okay. Now, here's a question, a totally different question, right? So last week and the week before, I was raving about real money and why we should all have sheep. Why are there so many details about all of these things? Like, who do you give details about these things to?
A farmer?
A farmer. When the book was written, what percent of people are farmers?
Very high number.
Exactly, right? So pre-industrial revolution, right? So we have to understand, revelation came in one world. Islam was codified in another world. We live in a third world, right? They're similar worlds, but there are differences. Okay, so there is a world where the people are semi-nomadic, tribally, they're organized in tribe, right? So if you see, so people are organized by tribe. Even in the conquest of Islam, the troops are still organized by tribe, right? So it's still like this Beni Asad, okay, you're all going to be in one platoon, right? That's how it was. So tribe is very important. Tribe is part of fiqh, right? We've spoken about that, the patriarchy, your tribe, your asaba, how they inherit weddings, blood money, etc. Right? Um, even in the Shafi school, in blood money, you actually specifically give camels. You can't give anything else, unless it would be cripplingly difficult to give camels, right? But if I live in Australia and I kill somebody, okay, accidentally, then my clan, my tribe, is going to give a bunch of camels to these people. Say, why? Because I can ship camels around in Australia, it's fine, or Saudi Arabia. Even if in Sydney they're like, dude, what's that? I've never seen a camel in my life. But we're going to say, no, no, the camel can get you without, it's not that expensive to get the camel to you. So you have to take this, you have to accept this camel. So you're living in this life, which sounds like Bedouin life, to be fair. Like your fiqh is kind of Bedouin because you're talking about tribes, you know, about camels, right? Blood money, right? It's kind of like a different world. So the Islam was revealed in a semi-nomadic world, not a fully nomadic world, but a semi-nomadic world. And then it and then books like this are written in a world which is a semi-agrarian world, meaning he might not be in a field, but everybody who's coming to him and all the politics revolves around getting land that you can have sheep and cows on, right? Everybody is farming. That's how everybody works, right? 99% of the community of everybody's doing that. Rich kids go to school and learn fiqh maybe, or kids who are, you know, they might be rich kids, not very rich kids, but that was often the case. There are many people who are very poor, but otherwise there are like rich kids like Imam Bukhari, his dad was wealthy, sent him with some money. He spent all of his money, but sent it with some money to go and study, right? That wasn't the norm because everybody had to work. Pre-industrial revolution, everyone has to work. Post-industrial revolution, all right, we're going to see post-AI in a second. Wallahu alam, what's going to happen there, right? But post-AI, post-industrial revolution, as opposed to post Skynet revolution, right? But post-industrial revolution, suddenly we don't need people to work as much. So now suddenly people are in the secondary and tertiary sector, right? I'm not having you working in the primary sector, which is farming and mining and stuff like that. You are in things like factories, get the milk, turn the milk into something else, or sell the milk, right? Or market the milk, or develop, things like in the secondary and tertiary sectors of business, right? So that's important to understand, right? Or to be cognizant of. That's all. Just we put it in the back of our head, say, right? So it is not like they lived in one world, we live in another, but rather they, the author of this book and this fiqh development, Imam Shafi'i, they lived in a world which was different to the world of the Prophet ﷺ. And we live in a world that's different to their world. And our world may even be changing again, right? So in fiqh, when we look at fiqh, we look at the illah, the why, right? And we try and pinpoint the why. And sometimes we can realize that the why. So, for example, the shift that we spoke about, right? The shift from to fiat currency is fairly new. That's a fairly new shift. So that's quite a fundamental shift, moving from selling things or services to nothing, right? And that took a bit of hard work from our fuqaha, and also our fuqaha were working in a world that they didn't control, right? So it's not like Qadi Abu Yusuf, the Chief Justice of the Abbasid Empire at the golden age of Islam, talking about money and saying ideally how things should be, and therefore the Khalifa saying yes, right? They're buddies and we'll talk to you and listen to you. That's not what's happening today, is it? We are following, right? So it's a very different thing where we're just following suit, like mobile phones. It's not like, it's not like the iPhone came out and Silicon Valley, who was buddies with the moral and intelligent ruler, came and brought the fuqaha and said, "What do you think about smartphones?" It's not like that. Smartphones come out, and then we have to follow and give a fatwa. Does that make sense? So there's a number of nuances. But when it comes to fiqh, why is fiqh important? Because we're trying to define the actual reason for something, right? And sometimes we might find that our actual reason is a bit off or doesn't fit, right? And there's other actual reasons. But when you deal with the illah, the reason for this is this.
Shay, can I ask a question?
But one second, just Sham. Just
Sure.
when you say what the reason for this is this is how you can see it shifting from situation to situation, right? Like so is the fact is this conditioned upon being in this semi-nomadic world? No, it's not. So therefore, it doesn't actually change, right? So certain things don't actually change, and certain things do change, right? And you can just see the language that as if you're talking to a shepherd, as if you're talking to somebody who manages shepherds. They're like, okay, great. When I'm doing my zakat calculations, I'm gonna go out there and say, check the following things: A, B, C, D, E, G. Okay, hang on a minute. This person has to pay together, not pay together, right? There's almost a list given to a zakat collector who works with a 99% agrarian population, right? Later on, when we're talking about salam contracts, can you forward sale on items? You're talking about people who are custom making clothes. You're not talking about a factory. It's clear, right? They're talking about different things, mixes of cloth, mixes of fabric. What about this? What about that? Is it cut? Is it not cut? There's lots of things, but you're talking to a world where it's like you're talking to tailors dealing in a fine cloth, which is very, very different to me, which is different and similar in different ways to ordering 10,000 socks made in a factory. It's similar and it's different, right? And we will see certain things that are actually fundamentally different. Like it actually changes. Like it says this, but that doesn't apply because the legal reason was this, right? And we can pinpoint that legal reason. And they're literally just giving an example. That's just an example. That's not what the actual legal reason is. Okay? That's an important thing to point out. Go ahead, Sham.
Sorry. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I wonder also, would being able to know what is the flock, how much agricultural wealth someone has, could that also affect, Sheikh, the calculation, for example, of mahr, because of what someone can afford, because the flock is seen as wealth?
Um,
Because it's very common in India, among Muslims and even Hindus also, that livestock get used as dowry.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out, is this part of the calculation?
Hmm. So the thing is with mahar is it's not defined, right? You don't have to do A or B. When is it defined is when we didn't agree on anything. There was no agreement about anything. So it wasn't, yeah. So basically what I'm trying to say is mahar, there's a phrase and they use it in Arabic, I'm sure it's an English phrase, is that the contract is the sharia of the two contractors. I'm sure there's some phrase for that in English. Like basically you can do whatever you want. Right? I can sell my house to you for any price I want, and you can accept or reject. Same thing with mahar, you can do whatever you want. Um, so um, so I don't think so. I think that's just more of a kind of a cultural thing and a way that they're judging how to make things fair. Um, um, yeah, that answer your question. So just with mahar specifically, you can kind of do whatever you want. Like there's no actual standards, right? In terms of the fiqh, right? In terms of what cultural people want to accept, say, oh, we would never do that. We would never accept this. We would never accept that, right?
Understood. I
But
mean, Chef, how many questions I've asked you about India and Mohammed also, where it feels like it's more cultural than Islamic.
yeah, yeah, but it's not always separate. Sometimes it is connected. But
Sure,
like
thank you.
how many sheep you have, how many yeah. Um, I'm just trying to think of another scenario like that. I don't know. Allah Alam. Khair. Okay, so moving on then. Um, so now gold and silver. So it says the minimum amount of gold is 20 mithqals, 20 dinars, which is 85 grams of 24 karat gold. Okay. So when we have jewelry, okay, it is usually not 24 karat gold because it would keep bending, right? And you could scratch it and things like that, right? So what we need to do is when you're dealing with impermissible or offensive jewelry, right? And you are valuing it, then we need to look at the actual value of the gold, the actual measure of the gold, right? And not the impurities we don't pay zakat on. Okay. Um, okay. But otherwise, when we're dealing with gold bullion, right? Here's a piece of gold. Okay. You're going to say like how many grams slash troy ounces you have. Okay. Um, okay. So 85 grams. Now this is considerable amount of money. This is like $6,000. Okay. On which there was a 25% zakat. So what does that mean? That means you have a chunk of gold sitting in your house in a treasure chest. The default is you need to cut a piece off this gold and give it away. That's the idea. Now, you don't have to cut a piece off that gold, but you do have to give some gold away. Okay, you can go and sell one of your sheep for some gold, and that got you, for example, so you're going to give 20, you get a 40th, so you're going to give half of a mithqal away, right? Half of a mithqal. So you sold one of your sheep for half of a mithqal, and said, there we go, I'm going to give that away, right? But you can't give your sheep away in its place. You can't give something worth that. You have to give the piece of gold away. Okay, so you owe gold. You either cut the gold that you have and give that away, or you have 25 pieces or 40 pieces, you give one of them away, 25, 40 bars of gold and you give one of them away. Okay, or you go and get that gold and give that away. Okay, the same thing with silver. You have 200 dirhams. So mithqal, that is an Arabic word, right? But it was originally called a dirham and a dinar. And we said before, what language is that from?
Oh, you Latin.
Latin, right? So dinar is Latin. It's not an Arabic word. Okay. Similarly, troy ounces Troy is in Greece, right? Um, and then along comes Islam. Muslims are superpower. We contribute to the world. The word carat, 24 karat gold. Qirat is Arabic, right? So qirat, that's what we've brought to the world, right? Or the Arabs brought to the word qirat, the carat, or the word silk, right? Silk is Arabic word. Um, um, anything above this is calculated. So now with silver, oh, what was it? So with silver, it's 200 dirhams. So at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 200 dirhams, right, of silver was exactly worth 20 mithqals of gold. So that was a ratio, right? So 595 grams of silver was equal to 85 grams of gold. Now it's drastically different. It's almost like 10 times different, right? And as we mentioned, we said, why is that the case? It's because we have dug up more gold and much more silver. So silver has become cheaper, right? So when you come along and say, oh, fiat currency is wrong because it doesn't have an actual limit, say, well, isn't that the same with gold and silver, right? Like, aren't we still digging up gold and silver, right? So, right, we just can't be absolutist, right? When we're looking at these things, there is a slight problem as opposed to we mentioned with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin in principle has a cap, right? There's only X amount of Bitcoins you can have in the world. Ethereum, I think, was slightly different, right? So that's an important thing to observe, right? But otherwise, it does have innate value in that. Here we go, right? You can use it. On which there is 25%, i.e. 5 dirhams need to be given. So you have 200 dirhams, you give 5 away. 2,000 dirhams, you give it away. Anything that is above, so it's calculated in proportion, right? So unlike sheep and goats and camels, it's not it's a continuous proportion as opposed to going up in certain kind of in a ladder fashion, right? Okay, so then we say with modern, and then we say on dollars and yen and euros and pounds and whatever it is you have the same thing. Any cash that you have or any retrievable loans, right? A loan that you can get back one day, right? So you lent somebody $10,000. In 10 years, they're going to pay you back. You're going to pay zakat each year for the money, or you're not, the money at least accrues, it adds up. You don't have to pay it out yet. The money accrues on people. If people owe you dirhams or dinars, or they owe you money, you also pay zakat on that, okay, on the money that's owed to you. Okay, so the monetary equivalent of gold and silver. So here we have the problem is, do I go with the gold standard or do I go with the silver standard? If we go with the gold standard, you're going to have at least $5,000-$6,000 in your savings for the whole year in order to pay zakat. If you don't have that much money, you don't pay zakat. Okay? If you go by the silver standard, we're talking more like $600. Right? You have $600 saved for at least the whole year. Your balance never went below $600. Right? In which case, no, in which case zakat is due, right? If it never went below that, right? Approximately. Okay. Then it says zakat is not obligatory on lawful jewelry. Okay. So number one, we pay zakat even if you haven't reached puberty. So your son who has $10,000 from his grandma, okay, in his bank account, pays zakat. That's number one. Number two, we don't pay zakat on lawful jewelry. And when we say lawful, we mean not offensive and not haram, right? So you're an OG with your like gold necklace, right? And your gold rings as a man, that is haram, okay? Can't do that. You're going to pay zakat on that, right? You're going to pay zakat on, so you're going to add your haram or makruh jewelry to your savings, okay? A woman who has has excessively large, it's like gaudy, like it's ugly. Nobody for let's say she lives in Paris, no woman in Paris would ever have a ring that big. It looks really weird, right? That's not considered beautification. That's considered strange. Okay. Similarly, with a man, if his ring is more than mithqal, and there's a bit of debate within the late scholars, is it more than one mithqal or is it more than urf, right? But he has a silver ring that's more than a mithqal, which isn't very big, right? So we're talking about a mithqal, 20 mithqals is 84 grams. So he has one mithqal is 4 grams. So his ring is pretty small, right? So if it was bigger than that, if it's more than like 4 and a bit grams, then it's going to be considered offensive. Or if he has multiple silver rings and that's not normal, right? Then they can become offensive, and then he's gonna have to pay zakat on it. So if it's offensive or haram, you're gonna have to pay zakat on it. Right? But if it's permissible, you're gonna pay zakat on it. Does that make sense?
So can I ask a question?
Bismillah, go ahead.
You said about silver rings if it's permissible. You said if it's permissible,
That's correct. There's no
then
zakat.
so what's permissible for silver rings again?
So there's got to be a normal silver ring that normal people wear. Okay. So it can't be big and it can't be it can't be huge. That again, there's a bit of late discussion on the late school. Exactly what does that mean? Is it actually a mithqal or does it change with orf? There's difference of agreement. But if we go with the mithqal, we're talking about a silver ring that is equal or less than a mithqal, and a mithqal is 1/20th of 85 grams. So we're talking about approximately 4.25 grams.
Okay, can I ask another question?
Bismillah.
So the the amount of savings is pegged to the 20 mithqal of gold, right? The minimum amount, like the amount of saving, the amount of.
If we use that, then you're going to have about 6,000. If we go with this,
Okay.
you're going to have about $500.
Okay, then my next question is the gold rate, especially recently, it's changing like drastically, right? So which one do we use?
We should use the
Yeah.
silver one. We should use the silver standard because that makes it more likely they're going to pay zakat. Does that make
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that means, so like you say, okay, what percent of Muslims in Singapore have at least 5,000, $5,000 minimum savings in the bank account the whole year? Few. Okay. What percent of people have at least $500 or $600? Okay, more, right? Not everybody, but more. So now there's going to be a lot more people who will be paying zakat.
Okay, even then, the rate of silver changes in a year, right?
Yeah, so we're interested. We're not. So basically, if you could, let's say, imagine if I had $1,500. Okay, like I have an account that has $1,500. I just keep it like that. Okay, so now I say, is $1,500 enough to buy 200 dirhams of silver? Yes, definitely. But let's say, for example, it was like $500. I might have actually gone below, right? Because I think it's like $500 to $600. So if it's $500, you might have gone below. Like you didn't have enough to buy 200 dirhams, at least in July, for example, of last year. In July and August, September of last year, you didn't have enough money to even buy 200 dirhams, in which case there was no zakat. Does that make sense?
At any point in the year,
Any point,
right?
yes, at any
Okay.
point of that year. So if you're looking at the very bottom line and you're like, it was 570. So at one point, like I had $575 in my bank account. At one point in the year or 3 months of the year, I could have bought 200 dirhams, but the rest of the year I couldn't, and then no zakat is due. So
Okay.
we're trying to say is you have to have enough cash to buy 200 dirhams of silver at the whole point of the year. And if you had
Okay.
less than that, then no zakat is due. Right?
Okay. Then, sorry, can I just ask one more, which is, I mean, in the Singapore MUIS website, which is you're familiar with that. It's
Yes,
yeah. Okay, so the rate given is the 85 grams of gold.
Mm-hmm.
So so like there's no harm in following the gold instead of the silver standard. It's just the
As
silver
far as
is
I
better.
know, there might be a debate among the mono scholars. The position that I was taught was you have to follow the silver one, but there may be debate.
Okay.
I was told that you
Okay.
have to. Why? I'll tell you why.
Wow.
It's like this. So imagine, for example, I left um, I left my wallet at your house. Okay. Now, and you can't call me. Okay. I left my wallet at your house and you can't call me. Are you allowed to borrow money from my wallet without my permission?
No.
No. Are you allowed to put it outside on your doorstep in a place where somebody might steal it? No.
No.
So without my permission, you cannot do something that's not in my interest with my property. Okay? So now I am the generic, voiceless, poor Muslim in Singapore. Okay? I can't tell you whether to go by the gold or the silver. Okay? So now you've decided how to do my money without me telling you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in which case, it's the same analogy. You can't do tasarruf bimal al-ghayr, that you can't use someone else's property in a way that they might not like without their permission. So if there was only one zakat eligible person in the whole of Singapore, and you could go and ask him, do you mind if I give you this? Or do you mind? Then maybe it'll be okay. But it's not, right? It's not like that. And also you might be paying outside anyway, following a weaker position. So basically you're making a decision about someone else's money or someone else's rights without them giving you permission to do that, right? And so Allahu Alam, that's what I was told. Is there a position? Presumably, what they're doing in Singapore is not wrong. Presumably, you can choose, right? You can choose. And also, there might be a reason for that, right? They come along and say, Habib, you live in Singapore. You're telling me that the wealthy of Singapore, somebody who has 600 or maybe 700 Singaporean dollars for a year, he's wealthy? He's not wealthy. What are you talking about? They're looking at the hikmah and the sharia. The hikmah and the sharia is the wealthy should help the poor. I'm poor if I only have $700, right? Why am I paying zakat, right? Why would I do that?
Yeah,
Right.
that was
So do we look at it? Do we look at it from one point of view, the other point of view? It can be looked at in different ways. Wallahu alam.
yeah, so
But it
that was
is better to give zakat, right? Is to just say, okay, zakat, khalas. It's better to give no charity, and every single time you give charity, you intend this to be zakat, right? And they say, well, khalas, at the end of the year, I've given, I didn't even, so even if follow Hanafis as well, right? So according to the Hanafis, you have to have that money at the beginning and end, not throughout, right? So
Mhm.
you've got a big check, you get paid once a year, or you get paid once a month, right? So most people, it's checked month to month. That's how they live life, right? And as you mentioned, even if you're buying a house, so you just bought a 3-story house, right? So obviously you're wealthy, right? Your equity, right, what you could sell, however much of that house you paid off for is a lot. You're actually a wealthy person, but you don't have any cash. You could still be you still don't have to pay zakat, and B, you might be zakat eligible, right? So, right. Um, but at the same time, what we should do is follow the Hanafi position and follow the silver standard. Say, have you had $600 at any point in this year, or from the beginning, from the first time you have to pay zakat, you take that date on the third day of or the second day of Shawwal, when you were 12, right? And you had reached puberty and you had received some money, right, from your grandparents, and you had to pay zakat. So a year later, did you have that money? Yes, I had that money and more. Okay. So they don't look at the time in between. They look at the time from the first time that you had to pay zakat, a year, each year interval from then, right? And so for many people then, they would have to pay zakat, right? And again, we're talking about 2.5%. So 2.5% of $500 is what? So 1% would be $5. Talking about $12.50, right?
Yeah.
So you give $20 in sadaqah, and you ask, you find this person is zakat eligible. Many people are zakat eligible. You give them sadaqah, and you say, "This is I intend this as zakat." Khalas. Done. On Judgment Day, it turns out the Hanafis were right, right? And you're in trouble, right? Alhamdulillah, you covered your back, right? So it's always more important to cover your back regarding the halal and haram, as opposed to doing extra things. Many people do extra, but they don't cover themselves on the basics. Does that make sense?
Yes, Ustad. Can I ask one more?
One more question, yeah.
Um,
You have to ask permission
so
from
we have.
all four people in the class then. Do we have permission? Yeah, no, go ahead. So your question, no, your question.
No. Muhammad's questions are always very interesting.
Actually, they answered one of my questions, which I was about to ask also.
See,
Please go.
mashallah. Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Allah.
So, Ustad, my next question is, like, if someone, if there's gold and savings, then there's a mixture, right? Like someone has.
So
gold.
there's something that happens today that didn't happen back in the day, which is I have 199 dirhams of silver, okay, and 19 mithqals of gold. Do I pay zakat? No. Right? So I had almost enough zakat to pay enough to pay in silver, 199, but I didn't have enough to pay in silver. And I had 19 mithqals of gold, but not enough. Do I pay zakat? No zakat. Today, because we're looking at the monetary equivalents, it's actually much easier to pay zakat because you might have, let's say, for example, you're between Singapore, India, and America, right? You're between these three countries. So you have some money here, some money here, some money here, and each of them completes one another, right? So you have Malay ringgits plus Singapore dollars plus whatever they use in Indonesia, and together they complete one another because they are all converted into gold or all converted into silver. Does that make sense? Because I'm not paying zakat on dollars, I'm paying zakat on silver. Does that make sense?
Yes, so we just have to convert all our monetary everything in
Yeah.
in
You're going to do a list
yeah.
basically. So the easiest practical thing is you just say, okay, when did you last pay zakat? First of Ramadan. Okay, easy, do Ramadan. Last time you paid zakat is first of Ramadan. So how much money is owed to you? Okay, this person owes me $5,000. Okay, how much cash do you have on right now? Look at your wallet, look at your bank account. Okay, X amount. Your trade goods, what are you buying and selling right now? And then what else? Your impermissible gold chain. So Badr, for example, right? OG from the Bay Area going around with his gold chain, right? Running from the feds. He's like, okay, takes off his gold chain for once, weighs it. Okay, it's this many grams. His 2 kilo gold chain that he wears, right? Add that all up together and pays zakat on it one. You are probably going to pay more zakat than you have to, because A, that $10,000 never came back to you. So you weren't actually obliged to ever pay zakat on it. A. B, you didn't actually have all that money for the whole year, right? C, some of the jewelry was permissible, right? So, but that's the easiest thing to do. Just first of Ramadan, how much cash do you have on you right now? What is owed to you? The value of the things that you've bought in order to sell. If you have a shop, for example, if you buy and sell computer parts, whatever you do on the side, um, or your shop, whatever it is, and then so your cash, how much you have in the bank account, your jewelry, and you pay zakat on that, right? And whatever is extra, intended as sadaqah, khalas. If you didn't have to pay it, it counts as sadaqah. It's not a big deal. Right. Does that make sense?
Yes, Ustad, yes.
Now, in the Shafi school, we will not minus your debts. So you could be, for example, you could pay zakat and receive zakat in the Shafi school, right? So you could be, for example, you borrowed $2 million, okay, in cash for your business, okay? You still have $1 million that you're running with. So after a year, you still have $1 million. You're going to pay zakat on it, even though you're in debt for $2 million, right? So in Shafi school, you can pay zakat and receive zakat. Whereas the Hanafis, what they'll do is they say, yes, somebody owes you 10,000, but you owe 20,000. So you're going to say cash, current cash right now, plus money in the bank account, plus value of your trade goods, plus the debts that are owed to you, minus the debts you owe to somebody else. And then so you had 15,000, and then it became minus 5,000, so you don't pay zakat. Right? There's no zakat was due, right? And then when they say the debts, they would say, Hanafis, they say, like, what if you're paying off a house? They mean the current debts, right? So if you have a payment which is due in 2 weeks, it's not due right now. But when you're like, oh, I'm actually behind on my payment on my house, I'm 2 months behind, right? So then that's going to become a debt, but you're not going to consider a debt the payment on your house that is due in a month, or you don't consider that. So that's the easiest thing to do. Does that make sense? Otherwise, for a Shafi, it's very rare that you're going to pay zakat unless you have serious savings. And most people don't do that because it's not very wise to do with your like. So here's the interesting thing, right? So Badr is like, hey, I'm not going to pay zakat. I'm going to invest, right? And he's going to invest, for example, in property, right? So I say, what kind of investment is that? Like a long term, like you want to have land? So yeah, I just want to have land. I just want to. So now, what's happened? What's happened is we have a Badr, instead of storing cash, right? He's went and bought something. Or Badr has $100,000. And I'm like, you're going to have to pay zakat on that. He's like, I have to pay zakat on this? I don't want to pay zakat. I'm going to go and buy a Ferrari, right? So now he went and bought a Ferrari. Now Muhammad Hashir, who's looking for a job, now has a job because Ferrari needs somebody to salesman, right? And then Muhammad Hashir now gets married because he has a job, right? And his kid needs to go to school. So now Sham has somebody teach, you can teach immigration to like 2-year-olds, right? Moving around the different classrooms, right? Can you see this? Is that the Sharia actually wants you to spend money? Because if you don't spend your money, you get stagnancy in the economy. It's actually very dangerous, right? That's what happens, right? When everyone gets scared and then they don't spend, it's very dangerous. So basically, so that fluidity is kept there. Either you're going to spend it in charity to create that fluidity to the people who need it, and they will obviously immediately spend it on their needs, or you're going to spend it on other things. So even if you spend it on luxury, you're still helping the economy. Does that make sense?
Sheikh, is this part of the tafsir for the verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that on the day of judgment you'll be judged for what you did and what you left undone? That the money that you had that you didn't spend for good, you will also be judged for that?
Yeah. So there's an element. There are certain bad kafir mentalities that have a good side in Islam, right? So like live and die young, right? There's a famous Jahili poet who was like that. Live and die young. He said, the way that they used to view alcohol in the Jahiliyyah was partying, but also being generous, right? So they talk about like spending a lot of money on wine, right, which is generosity. So he said, look at the poor person and the rich person. Their graves look awfully similar, right? Like when you spend all your money and you're dead, you look awfully similar to me, right? And the same attitude is like, just spend it, bro. Like find something good and spend it because you're just going to be dead soon, right? There's an element to that. And so that's not complete in that we don't look at it exactly the same way, right? We're not reckless, but like, live and die. So for example, like, oh, I don't want to be a firefighter because I might die young. Isn't that a good thing? Right? Like, isn't that a good thing? Or I don't want to marry a firefighter because, what if he dies and leaves me, by myself? I'm like, isn't that a good thing? Like your husband died as a shaheed at 33 or 25, right? So this attitude with money, right? Um, it's not as reckless as it could be, but it is somewhat less like, if you compare it to Dickensian England, right? Like Ebenezer Scrooge kind of person, like it's not like that. Like it's like spend your money, invest your money in good things, right? Use your money for good things, right? And you find that, right? Like Smaller, right next to me, I actually read this to you. I can't read French very well, but right next to me, I have this post that I'm working for Instagram. Is The Little Prince. So is everybody familiar with The Little Prince? No?
A million years ago.
A million years ago. Anyway, I did it in French and we did it. I liked it. It was kind of a book that we had in our house. Anyway, so basically, Little Prince, he lands in this planet in the middle of nowhere, and what does he do? He finds was that before? But yeah, he finds he lands on this little planet, and the planet is like literally the size of a room, right? And it's like a king. He's like, oh, hello. He's like, and the guest says, oh, one of my subjects. Like, huh? Like, how am I one of your subjects? So yeah, I'm the king. You're the king of what? Oh, I'm the king of the universe and this planet. So like, what do you do with the kingdom that you rule? So I rule it. Okay, well, what does that mean? Oh, it's like it's mine and I have subjects. Like, okay. Like, so he's just questioning, like, what does it mean to what does it even mean? What's the point of being the king? Then he bumps into somebody else. He goes to another planet and he bumps into an alcoholic who's drinking. He's like, why are you drinking? So I don't know. Okay, why are you sad? I don't know. I'm just drinking. Like, okay, if you don't know why you're sad, then why are you sad? Like, because, you know? And then he goes to another planet and he goes to a businessman. He's like, the businessman is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's like, what are you counting? He's like, oh, don't disturb me. I'm an important person. He's like, no, what are you counting? He says, I'm counting these things. Okay, what are these things? Those things that shine. You mean stars? Yeah, stars. What do you do with the stars that you own? I own them. He says, hang on a minute. I just visited a king like not that long ago. He said he ruled the universe. He said, yeah, but he rules the universe. I own the universe. There's a difference. Like, what's the difference? So like you have something. If you don't use it, then you don't have it. If you don't use it, then you don't have it, right? I have kids that you don't have time to see, right? You have rabbits. I remember having rabbits, right? I'm like, I'm too busy to even go and see them. What's the point of having rabbits then if you don't go and see your rabbits, right? Right? What's the point of a cute cat that you can't stroke, right? So with money is use it exactly like what you spent and what you didn't spend. Like, hey, you had money. Money is an opportunity to do something good. Find out something really good to do with this money, right? Investing could be very good. Charity could be very good, right? There's all sorts of things. But what we don't want is there's a big wad of cash. You have $50,000, $100,000 just sitting there. You're saying, I'm keeping it for what? If you want to make more money, Bismillah, that's good. Go and get the $100,000, invest it, and then you start you're creating jobs for people. You're doing things. This is also a point that Mufti Taqi Uthmani he said about forex exchange, right? So Bitcoin forex exchange. He said even if we say it's halal within criteria, with certain criteria to exchange, right? Forex, etc. That's that's what you do. That's not the goal of the Sharia. The Sharia doesn't want you to turn numbers into numbers. The Sharia wants you to turn numbers into things. You get $1 million, turn it into a hospital. Hospital, turn it into this, turn it into that, right? There's no harm in having tons of money, but do something with it. Don't just have it sitting there, right? Don't just have it sitting there. I have 8 kids. What do you do with your 8 kids? I don't know. I never see them because I'm working. What was the point of having 8 kids then if you never see them, right? Uh, I have a big house. What's the point of your big house? What do you do with the big house? Nothing. Then you don't have a big house. A big house is only a big house if it's full of dhikr, if it's full of khair. Otherwise, you don't have a big house, right? I have a sports car. Okay, do you drive it? I remember seeing sports cars in Amman. So Amman, the roads are not, they're not, not like good. Like, what's the point in having a Ferrari, right? When you can't, when the traffic's too bad and the roads are too bad. Like, you don't have a Ferrari then, do you? Right? What's the point? Like, what's the point? There's no difference between my Porsche and my Prius and your Porsche when we're both stuck in a traffic jam, right? There's meaningless, right? So looking at wealth in terms of, so the way that we look at wealth is, what can I do with this money that I can keep on Judgment Day? That's what I'm interested in, right? So that doesn't mean necessarily spend it all away, but like if I'm saving it, what am I saving it for? And if I'm investing it, why am I investing it? All these things like, and don't be like the guy like, yeah, I own it. Right? I want a cool car. Well, what do you do with the cool car? Are you going to drive it every day? Yeah, I'm going to drive it every day. Right? Great. I'm really gonna enjoy it. Like I need, like it's gonna change my attitude. Like I when I go to work, I'm really like annoyed. And like, alhamdulillah, I drove this really nice car to an hour and a half, an hour and a half. Alhamdulillah, like I feel happy. I sit in a car that I like. The gears are done the way I like it. I feel happy. I come out of this car as a happy person. Alhamdulillah, you turn money into a good deed. Fine. But half the time, what do? We turn it into nothing, right? We just blow things. Like you didn't turn it into anything. Right? And subhanAllah, the other day, I was talking to this brother, forgive my tangents, but talking to this brother, and he was talking about Gaza, etc. And he's like, he had adopted a child, right? And I was like, we were just talking about, people spending like money or time and energy on Gaza, and like, in your own country, there's like problems. Like, so Azhar, for example, like, here you go, give him $1 million. You think you could adopt all the church orphans in Muslim orphans in India with $1 million? No. Like, there's infinite problems in your own immediate thing, right? And because of the drama and the way that the internet works, and that it's like the hype, like obviously that's important, but there's million other things in your life. So turn your money into good deeds, adopt a child. There we go. Fantastic. Like you have an opportunity. You had an American passport, right? You had a certain salary that you had a certain no criminal record. You had this, you had this. Adopt a child. Turn it into something good. So help somebody out, right? Etc. Right? Like turn what you have into something good. Right? Any questions or queries? So forgive my tangents. Um, inshallah, was useful. So inshallah, next week we're going to go on to agriculture and fruit, inshallah ta'ala. And just in the pipeline, I contacted somebody who works on sustainability and what's the word? Permaculture. So inshallah, we're going to do a short course, inshallah, ya Rab, in spring on Islam and sustainability and real wealth, right? Things like these discussions like, should Muslims have land, or should they buy property, or should they invest, or how does that even work, right? How do we do these things, right? Inshallah ta'ala. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.